Good morning, everyone. It is 9 a.m., and this is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Tennessee Board of Examiners for Land Surveyors. Today is May 19th. I am Michael Schulz, the Executive Director. And before we get started with a call to order, I just want to remind everybody, if you're joining us online, to please mute yourself unless otherwise in the act of speaking. Appreciate it. Thank you. So at this time, Mr. Chairman, if you would give us a call to order, I will take roll and we can proceed.
Great. Thank you, Michael. Before we proceed with that, I'm going to go ahead and read here at the top of the agenda the notice of the May 19th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Examiners for Land Surveyors, including date, time, and location, has been noticed to the Land Surveyors website since December 2nd, 2021. Additionally, this month's agenda has been posted on the website since Friday, May 13th, 2022. With that, I will call this meeting to order and request Mr. Michael, if you would call the roll, please.
Hoffman.
Here.
Mr. Clark.
Here.
Mr. Dillahay. Mr. Dillahay is absent today. Mr. Martin.
Here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, Mr. Dillahay did call me yesterday and indicated he had some personal business to take care of, so he's not able to attend. He apologizes in advance for that. With that, I trust that the members here have had an opportunity to review the agenda. Is there any changes or modifications to be made before we make a motion on adopting? I would like to, as stated at the bottom of the agenda, request a little flexibility to move some items around as needed.
Sure thing. And if I might make a request as well, we've been joined this morning by Assistant Commissioner Martin. I would request that he be offered the opportunity to address this body as needed.
Certainly will put you to the top of the agenda here once we get it adopted. Thank you, sir. With that, I'll accept a motion on the agenda, please.
Move to adopt.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda is adopted. With that, I think before, Mr. Martin, if you give us just a little flexibility, since it kind of just flows, I'd like to do the approval of the February 2022 minutes as were provided in the packet for the members here. Is there any changes, revisions, modifications to the minutes to be made?
I have no changes.
No changes.
All right, no changes there. With that, I'll take a motion for approval of the February 2022 minutes.
Move to approve.
Motion and a second. Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 And anyone opposed? Okay, with that, those minutes have been approved and accepted. All right. Taking that flexibility lead in the agenda there, I would like to take advantage of that for a little bit and acknowledge a guest of ours, Mr. Alex Martin, Assistant Commissioner. I hope I have that correct.
Yes, sir.
I think that's correct, yeah.
Michael, where's best? Podium? Yeah, wherever.
I'd say podium probably is best if that's comfortable with you.
Yep.
Absolutely. Welcome, sir. Great to have you here again.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. So I wanted to come down and join the board this morning and make some brief remarks. Good to see you all. Appreciate your service. So I'm sure that you all have seen the recent announcement about Michael. I think we had sent that out in the last week or so. So I wanted to come down and just share that with the board in an open manner. So Michael is going to be leaving the Division of Reg Boards, but he's going to be taking a role inside the department in the Division of Insurance. So it's a bittersweet moment for us, and I'm sure the board as well. We will certainly miss Michael in the team as a whole and the director's cohort, but I wish him well in his new role in insurance. And so we'll certainly turn it over to him in a minute to talk a little bit about that if he'd like to share it with the board. But just want to say that I have really enjoyed working with Michael. We've been able to work together for a better part of 2 years. It's been a lot of fun. We'll certainly miss you and wish you well. As for the transition, which I think was also mentioned in the email, really happy to announce that we've got Glenn Kopchak is going to be taking over the role as Executive Director of the Property Board's portfolio, which of course includes this board. So many of you might know Glenn. Glenn is a veteran in the division. He really knows the players, understands the portfolio, and I think will do a great job in the role. So it's a bittersweet moment, but we're also excited about the opportunity as well. So just wanted to come down and share that news, and happy to answer any questions, or if there's any other sorts of update that y'all need from me, happy to provide that. So, Michael?
I would at this point ask a reserved comment to the end of the meeting, I think.
I think that's fair. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That about covers it.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex.
That covers it.
Outstanding.
Yep. Yep. Thank
Outstanding.
you, Chairman. Thank you, gentlemen.
Alex, thank you, sir. We appreciate you stopping by and sharing the news with us. All right. Okay, with that, I also would like, again, take a little bit of flexibility here. I'm going to request that we move the professional society report to the next item on the agenda. I do that because I know we have several members of TAPS on the phone right now. I know they're actively working at their day jobs and have taken their time out to share some information with us. I know originally I had asked Mr. Jimmy Cleveland to represent TAPS. Is he currently with us on the phone?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, is now a good time for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna turn the microphone over to you, Jimmy.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to again thank the board for allowing us to attend virtually. It's really helpful for those of us that need to remain in our day jobs but still participate with the Board of Examiners. We really appreciate that. We've got several members here, Mario Forte and Ashley Rose Nayland. They're attending here, so they may offer something else outside of what I'm going to report. TAPS has recently had our conference, and it was a success. It was good to see everybody back in person. We started the outreach program, and it is extremely promising. TAPS had members attend the state FFA convention or conference, and they reached out to approximately 300 or spoke to approximately 300 students at that conference and exposed them to surveying. So that's very promising. Several of them showed a lot of interest in the surveying profession, so we're hoping that that's going to be a positive thing for our profession in the future, starting to plant that seed to some potential future members of our profession. We are, as an association, we are exploring options for on-demand learning, similar to what some other associations are offering through their websites and association activities. Still just in the very beginning stages of that exploration, and looking to see what opportunities are there and work with the board on seeing if that's a possibility for here in Tennessee. And then as an association, we're just waiting on the release of the draft standards of practice revisions.
Very good. Very good. All right. I don't know that I have much to add or expand on that at this time. Some of those points will come up later on in the agenda today. Does Mario, Ashley, do you have anything to add to it?
I do not. This is Mario. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take that as a complete report. Jimmy, anything to follow up, or are you good there?
I'm good at the present time. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Thank you so much again for virtually attending the meeting and sharing that information from TAPS. I really want to emphasize that new program that TAPS is taking on with the trying to obtain students and garner some interest in them. There's a couple of select individuals in there that I'm aware of that are really spearheading the project and kind of sharing their information and experience in an effort to gather in more future professionals, which we need, desperately need. It's an outstanding program and is just an absolute priority for professional societies like TAPS to spearhead efforts like that. And we certainly want to encourage that as best we can. So thank you again to all three of you for attending. And with that, I think we'll move on to the next item of the agenda. Next item that I'm seeing is the election of officers. I think originally scheduled for our prior meeting back in February. I think it was. I think I probably lapsed in getting that through and making that happen. So here we are with this month, or this current meeting, with the election of officers. If there is a motion to be made for chairman, now would be the time to make that motion.
Mr. Chairman, I was thinking in light of Jackie being absent and me just being my first year onto it, I would like to move that we just maintain the same slate of officers next year as we have this year.
Very good. Is there a second?
A second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Easy enough. Carry on forward. All right. Mr. Schultz, are we good to proceed on to the Mullins review?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is that something you want to introduce for us at first? I know Mr. Mullins is here in attendance. I am going to ask Mr. Mullins to step forward to the podium, of course, but if there's something to introduce on it, now would be the time.
Let's see. I got to pull up the email. Wrong email. Hold on just a second.
All right, Mr. Mullins, you can go ahead and step forward here. The gist of the email basically boils down to Mr. Mullins is looking to have his license reinstated.
That is correct. You're right. I just pulled it up. Mr. Mullins requested to address the board to discuss having his license reinstated without re-examination.
Request, yeah.
And the synopsis I have right here is just about as brief as that. So in terms of further details, I would ask you all as the governing body, what questions you might have for Mr. Mullins as to why this request is being made.
Certainly, yeah. We'll expand on that. Yeah, thank you. Caleb, do you have any information? No, in terms of Mr. Mullins' existing condition, prior record in terms of examination, anything like not with you? Okay. Okay. I had some correspondence with Morgan earlier in the week about it, and she did give some details about his, your current licensure status, when you originally were licensed, things like that. I'm going to ask you to reiterate that for me, obviously, just to double check.
Sandy Melhorn is now exiting.
So with that, Mr. Mullins, we certainly welcome you to the meeting. We certainly appreciate the long distance that you traveled. I know from, I think you said just outside of Bristol in Virginia, I think is where you reside. That's quite a journey right there in itself. So we appreciate you making your presence here. That does mean a lot. It certainly shows sincere effort. Certainly. I think you originally had made a request recently on May 3rd is the date of the email requesting, number one, that you be allowed to appear in front of us to kind of state your case, so to speak. So with that in mind, I'll just kind of turn the microphone over to you if you give us kind of a brief history as to what's leading up to here, why your license currently isn't active, and then specifically what it is that you're looking for the board to help you with.
Okay. Actually, I don't even remember the initial.
Okay.
Sandy Melhorn is now joining.
Okay. Where I had an extended stay in the hospital and subsequently, actually, my post office box got not renewed or whatever, and I actually lost all my license in every state that I was licensed in at the time, and I have to. The first of 2008, I started trying to get those back, and of course, I initially started with Virginia, and but I got all my licenses back except for Tennessee, and so I had applied once before, but I was asked to take the exam at that time, and I would like to ask that I be able to resubmit another application for reinstatement and have the requirement, or I don't know if it's a requirement, or I have the part about reexamination waived in lieu of I thought I had 40 hours of continuing education from last year, but actually I got 48, and I brought those with me. I brought a copy for each member, but I can just bring one copy up if you'd like, or I can bring one.
Fine. Yeah.
One for each member.
Yeah, one for each would be fine. If you have 3 copies, that'd be great.
guess I ended up having one extra since Mr. Dell was not able to be here today. I'm very aware that in Tennessee and other states there are becoming a big shortage of licensed land surveyors. I know in my home state of Virginia, and by the way, I've only lived in 2 states in my life. One was Virginia and the other one was Tennessee. So, but in the home state of Virginia, I know or what I've been told, that they lose about 30 surveyors a year more than they license. And I understand that there's also a great shortage in Tennessee. I get calls all the time. Of course, I'm right there in the Tennessee, Tri-Cities area of Tennessee. So I get calls all the time from people from Tennessee, even some of my past clients, that I cannot, offer services to or try to help them out or anything like that. And so, I would, like to request that I be reinstated, and waive the reexamination, maybe in lieu of the 48 hours continuing education. I'd like to go back in history just a little bit. Also, there was a gentleman at kind of in the same situation that I was back in this time, and this comes from the February 3rd, 2011 minutes. And this gentleman's name was Frank Palumbo. And I'm just reading off of what I've highlighted here. The members of the board then reviewed the continuing education submitted by Frank Palumbo, license number 581, expired 12/31/07, which was the same date that my license had expired. Mr. Palumbo failed to comply with the board's direction on January 15, 2010, which instructed Mr. Palumbo to submit 30 hours of continuing education. After January 2009, he submitted 30 hours of continuing education to the board office on December the 13th, 2010, with 4 of those hours being taken in 2008. Therefore, based on the fact that Mr. Palumbo, I want to keep on wanting to say Columbo instead of Palumbo. Palumbo did not comply with the board's original direction in a timely manner. Tim Lingerfelt made a motion to rescind the original motion in this matter. David Cagle seconded the motion. There being no further discussion, the motion carried unopposed. Mr. Lingerfelt then made a motion to allow Mr. Palumbo to take the Tennessee Pacific's portions of the exam in April 2011 and give him credit of his exam fee of $100. He has already submitted. Mr. Palumbo will not need to resubmit any more continuing education at this time. David Cagle seconded the motion, and there being no further discussion, the motion was was carried unopposed. Okay, and then this is the next paragraph down. The board didn't review the reapplication of Gregory Mullins, which was me, license number 1702, expired 12/31/07, so same date as Mr. Palumbo's had expired. Tim Lingerfelt made a motion that Mr. Mullins must submit 30 hours of continuing education and sit for the Tennessee Pacific's portion of the exam. The continuing education submitted must be approved by the board before the applicant will be allowed to sit for the exam. Sue Braley seconded the motion. There being no further discussion, the motion was carried unopposed. Okay, so that was in February 2011. Okay, this is in April 2011. And like I say, I'm just reading from a paragraph that I highlighted. The board then reviewed the continuing education submitted per the board's direction by Mr. Frank Palumbo, 581. After reviewing the information submitted by Mr. Palumbo, Tim Lingerfelt made a motion to require that Mr. Palumbo take and pass the Tennessee Pacific portions of the land surveyor's exam. Sue Braley seconded the motion, and the motion carried unopposed. Okay, and then we get to the August meeting, and I'll read what I have highlighted once again. The board then met with Mr. Frank Palumbo. Mr. Palumbo has reapplied for licensure, and his license expired on December 31st, 2009, it says here, but back earlier it said 2007, so I'm taking that to be a typo. David Cagle made a motion to issue Mr. Palumbo a new license. Jackie DeHaley seconded the motion carried. So here is a gentleman that was in the same situation that I was in, and he was issued a license or without having to take retake the examination. So I think, I mean, if it's fair for one person, to be granted that, then it should be fair for another person like myself. And I've continuously worked as a land surveyor, been licensed, as a land surveyor in at least one state, since this time. And I'm currently licensed and active in Kentucky, Virginia, and West Virginia. And like I said, I have taken, 48 hours of continuing education. Last year, I noticed that 8 of it is for the ethics and standards of practice for Kentucky. But I think that's I think that's all I've got to say on that.
Sure. Of the PDHs that you submitted here, the 48, I think you said, is any of that in minimum standards for Tennessee specifically?
No, it's not. Okay. But I would be happy to take that.
Right. Okay.
And of course, there's the ethics there. I know ethics is really more broad than standard of practice, but I would be glad to take an ethics course if that was desired by the board also.
You gave a pretty good detailed timeline history there of the progression here, mostly back in 07, even up to 2011, 10, 11, 12 years ago, et cetera. If I understood you correctly, and please correct me if I misunderstood you, the board back in its original ruling had required you to take the 2-hour state-specific exam. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did you ever take that?
Yes, I did.
You did? Okay. And?
I did. It was in October of 2011. I was in a campaign at that time. Didn't have a chance to study for it, and I just was trying to drive down the day of the exam. Had a flat tire on the way down.
Did you pass the exam?
No.
You did not? Okay.
I was not successful in passing it.
Okay. So you have taken the exam under the direction of the original ruling of the board and failed to pass it. Is that correct?
Right, that's correct.
Okay. All right.
But, I'd also like to add, I'm 71 years old. I'm by Tennessee. I understand I'm not even required to take continuing ed anymore. And, I don't know how many more years I have here on earth, much less how many more years I have surveying. So, that's why I would like to, have this expedited as quickly as possible to get my license reinstated.
But, I'm a little uncomfortable with the fact that you did take the exam and failed to pass it. That's an issue with me. I can't speak for the other members here. But that doesn't look good in light of, what the public would see in terms of, the licensure of any surveyor that has failed an exam that the board required you to take based on that result of not passing, and then come back and say, it's okay, we're going to go ahead and allow you to get that license reinstated. it's a little contradictory in and of itself. And it's been, quick math here, 11, 12, 13 years since the license originally had expired.
Right.
That's a pretty good length of time there.
Right.
Things have changed, things evolve in the profession. What is it that makes you uncomfortable right now with the requirement of the original board's decision to take that 2-hour exam, which now is computerized? You don't have to travel to Nashville. You can take it in a local place. It's all computerized. You don't have to wait for April and October. All those convenience factors that we used to have to battle with, I think probably originally you and I did when we first gained our licenses. Those have all been eliminated. So the convenience and the openness of the ability to take the exam is much easier now than it used to be.
Right.
The expenses involved, all that, et cetera. And granted, there's still fees involved with the exams, but the expense of coming to Nashville, staying the night, et cetera, waiting 6 months, and then waiting 3 months after that to find the result. All that's been eliminated. So really the whole convenience and expense argument is kind of out the window. What is the main reason really that you're here requesting reinstatement without passing the exam that the board originally ruled that you need to take? You did take. Unfortunately, you didn't pass it. And so here we are, 10, 12, 13 years later, whatever it is. What's changed? I mean, what is it that the board should overrule its original decision that would comfort me into saying, yes, now you're qualified, but passing the 2-hour exam now, back then
I
you were
think
not.
I was qualified back at that time. I originally took the exam, passed, and I was qualified at that time.
Sure, absolutely.
And to have to, I'm not going to retake the exam.
Is there a reason why? I mean,
for one thing, I don't think many of us could walk right off the street and take that exam, and
with any
pass
exam.
it.
Like that pretty much goes with any exam. You're not expected to.
Yeah, and so it would take a substantial amount of studying or whatever to prepare for this exam, to take it, and then the time period that we'd have to go through in order to try to take it, get the results, and get.
It's almost instantaneous. The results come back very quickly, and let's just kind of reevaluate the purpose of that 2-hour exam, right? It's to prove competence in the technical minimum standards that a surveyor in Tennessee must know. And that goes with any state that has its own 2-hour exam, right? I think you said you have multiple licenses. You probably took similar exams in those other states. I would think so. So it's proof to the public and to the board, number one, to issue that license, but to the public that this board has comfort in your skills, abilities, and talents as a surveyor, that you have met those technical minimum standards. Again, minimum standards. Having on your record that you failed to pass it one time at the board's direction to take that exam. Here we are 10, 12 years later. I think the board and the public deserves a little more comfort and reassurance that this board, if it issues a license to you, that you as a surveyor have that technical minimum competence in the standards of Tennessee to survey. I mean, I don't think that's unreasonable.
Well, what about Mr. Palumbo? I mean, he was requested to take it. He apparently didn't take it.
I don't think when you read those to me, and I don't know the history of that. I was not on the board at the time, so I can't really speak for that. Perhaps we can look into the history of it. But I don't know that you read that he either did or did not take it.
It says that
I know he was requested to take it. I don't know whether he did or did not.
Take it, but it doesn't say anything about him being. And he came to the board, and from what I understand, without. I guess taking or retaking the exam, and the board felt his qualifications was good enough to reissue his license without taking an exam. It makes me look like, well, I should have took Mr. Palumbo's route instead of the route I took, and therefore I could have came to the board, met, and had my license reinstated.
I'm not competent or aware of Mr. Palumbo's history there. I was not on the board at the time, so I wasn't aware of that. So.
But it's in the minutes, so I mean, you can.
I'm not questioning you. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think you pretty much have an idea of where I feel on this. I'm going to expand this out to the other board members and ask their opinion as well. Kevin, you want to?
Yeah, Mr. Mullins, I'm the public member, so not a land surveyor by trade, but I'm an engineer by education and occupation, or at least I was for 20 or so years. My question is, I know a lot of so what happened in 2011, and I see your CE credits were 2021. Why was the interest in not pursuing all those years, the re-examination and the re-licensure for the state of Tennessee? Why did all the time lapse? I mean, I'm just curious to know that. Maybe you were busy in Virginia, I don't know, but yeah.
To be truthful, it was because of an ex-board member that you have.
Not sure where to go with that. I share Jay's. I hear your minutes that they required Mr. Colombo to take the exam, but I didn't see where anyone said that he actually didn't go and take the exam. I mean, is that your contention that he did not?
That's my contention that he did not. I actually talked to Mr. Colombo, and he told me he did not retake the exam.
Well, that's troubling. I would like to actually find out if that actually happened, if that was a reversal on the original boards. I mean, your statement that you're just not going to take the exam bothers me a bit too.
Yeah. I'm 71 years old.
Well, I'm 69, and so
well, we're close.
Yeah,
but no, I don't think it's at this time in my life that I'm going to go and take a re-examination that I've already taken, 30 years ago or some or whatever. 30 plus years ago.
Like you, I've multiple licenses, so I've taken several of the state-specific exams, and they're not that tough. I mean, once you go through the minimum standards of practice and a little bit of how that particular state works, I never found any of them to be particularly tough on the state-specific.
I won't mention the name, but I had talked to someone about this situation, and they recommended that I come and address the board about this.
Well, Mr. Mullins, I'm hearing a little bit of disconcern on both sides there. It does concern me, your unwillingness to take the 2-hour exam. I'm not certain what drives that. Again, I take it personally that each and every surveyor that this board licensed out in the state of Tennessee, I take it with a personal responsibility that each of them has shown to us that they are technically competent in the skills, the rules, the TCA involved with surveying. And that's the purpose of that 2-hour exam, is to show by testing to this board and eventually to the public there that each and every surveyor in this state has successfully passed that exam and shown minimum competence in the rules and standards of surveying in Tennessee. Obviously, you did that with your original license, so that's been done once before. However, you failed to maintain the license. The board made a ruling that in order to regain your license that you need to retake that 2-hour exam. You did take that 2-hour exam, but was unsuccessful. It's hard for me in a good conscience to be able to sleep at night, so to speak, with that on my mind, that this board were to reinstate a license without having that proof of technical minimum competency that is required. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and afford a motion that we not reinstate the license as requested by Mr. Mullins. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on that? All right, hearing none, we'll take by voice vote, please, by individual on that motion. Gary?
No.
Kevin?
No.
Yes. To the motion.
Do we
The
misunderstand the motion?
The motion was to not reinstate the license.
Okay.
So just I want to retake that vote so we all are very clear on the understanding of the motion. The motion is for not reinstating the license. A yes vote would be to agree with that. A no vote would be to disagree. Am I in line there, Michael? Am I correct? I
believe the logic is sound.
Okay. All right. So with that, again, we'll restate this voice vote again independently. Gary?
Yes to the motion, no to the reinstatement.
Okay, thanks.
To be clear.
Yeah.
Yes to the motion, no to the reinstatement.
And I third that as well. Yes to the motion and no to the reinstatement, which is one and the same. So with that, Mr. Mullins, again, I although it didn't come out in your favor, and you make a valid argument, and I am very appreciative of your sincerity, and just showing up here alone says a lot. It really does. I mean, that means a lot. You could have phoned in easily, but you didn't, and it does show passion toward the profession. I'm not questioning that at all whatsoever. But I hope you can understand where this board sits and where it comes from, and that our responsibilities are to the public, paramount. And that each and every individual surveyor we have to look at in each case and be able to prove to the public that, yes, each surveyor here has proven their competency in the minimum standard level and is authorized by licensure to perform surveys here. Again, I've fallen back on the original board's decision. Should you take that 2-hour exam? Again, I think I've outlined all the steps for convenience that have been set in place. Just apply for the 2-hour exam. If you be successful, then it looks like all the check marks would be there for reinstatement. Of course, I'm sure there's some application fees and perhaps some licensure reissue fees, things like that. That's administrative. But I feel certain that is the path that we could get you licensed again. Do you have any questions for us?
Right. I think there's something that's in the law or the regs that says that you're not supposed to practice outside your competency. If I was granted my real license, I would not practice outside of my competency or whatever. Yeah, and also, I'm a member of the Virginia Association of Surveyors. I'm also a member of the National Society of Professional Surveyors, and I've also done a lot of free pro bono work in my community, surveying soccer fields and a lot of other stuff.
Certainly.
And I don't know why Tennessee had to come up with something like this anyway, and other states that I'm surrounded in and was licensed in, never had any problem with this. Only Tennessee. So
I understand.
That says something to me too.
Well, again, we're not trying to make it difficult. It's nothing personal between the board and yourself. I have no issues with you. You may be the best surveyor in the world. I'm not questioning that whatsoever. But understand that administratively, from our point of view, the checks in each box have to be checked in order to prove to the public that for the reassurance. And right now, there's just that one check that I'm aware of that needs to be checked, and that's all we're asking.
Thank you for your time.
Well, certainly, sir. Again, thank you for just your presence here, and your argument is valid, and certainly appreciate you making the trip. We'll give Mr. Mullins there a minute to gather his things there. Michael, next up, I believe, is the education report, if I'm going right.
Yes, sir. That is correct.
All right.
Aside from the normal document, which you're accustomed to seeing,
yes,
there were 2 other attachments that fall under this education report. One is a submission of review of CE material from Mr. Jeffrey Miller, and the other is a submission of a syllabus from UT Martin that is seeking QE status, not CE status.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Very good. So I think we have 3 separate items really here under the education report. Number one, I think we need to do probably quick and easy the formal adoption of the PDH requests. Is that correct? Of which we probably had 2 full pages there. I trust that all those have administratively gone through the approval of the PDH review board and or members of the board here independently by email. I know I've seen a few of those in prior approval, but really we just need a formal motion to adopt those.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to ask the members of the board here that either as a whole or if you have individual ones that you wish to pull, certainly speak up now. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion for adoption of all those listed. For all the items?
Yes, so moved for all the items.
Okay, so we have a motion for approval of
And
all the
you're just
items.
talking about the education report, the UT Martin is separate?
Separate, yes,
Yeah,
that'd be
okay.
separate. Yeah, right now we're just listing
Yes.
the ones for PDH approval. Okay.
I second the motion.
All right, so a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Very good. Okay, so we have approval of those PDH's requests. Okay, so now let's move on to the other 2 items, Michael, that you mentioned earlier, the UT Martin syllabus. We also were provided some information on that. I believe it's a course from UT Martin looking for, if I understand this correctly, help me out. I believe they're looking for approval for the list of approved courses for the educational requirements of application. Is that correct? What we refer to this as the list 1, list 2, list 3.
That is my understanding.
And it makes sense.
Yes.
It absolutely falls in line. And quite honestly, I appreciate UT Martin and Sandy's efforts to present this to us because I can tell you other universities fail to do that, and we're unaware of their courses. And people submit approval of the course, and we're like, what is this? We don't know. So thank you, Sandy, for that proactive move. With that, I trust the other members of the board here have had an opportunity to review the course description provided by UT Martin. Is there any issues with the content of the course or adoption into the list of approved educational courses? Is there any issues there?
I had no issue.
Have you good there? Okay, and then secondly, on that same topic, we do need to we need to kind of place it, so to speak, into a category, what I call list 1, list 2, list 3 course. Of course, for the application, the educational requirements, each applicant is required a certain number of courses from list 1, list 2, and list 3 based on the category of application, whether they're a 4-year degree applicant, a 2-year degree applicant, et cetera, et cetera. I think all this we're all very familiar with as we do review applications consistently, and this is always a requirement. So right now what we need to do is figure out where this course submitted by UT Martin falls on the list, so to speak, list 1, list 2, or list 3. Again, generally speaking, the list 1 courses are upper division level courses, often called 300, 400 level, typically taught your junior, senior year, again, referred to as upper level. Your list 2, generally speaking, are the very basics in terms of surveying education, kind of what I would refer to as Survey 101, so to speak, and those comparable type courses. List 3 generally consists of kind of your GED courses, your calculus, your physics, your basic sciences, not directly related to surveying, but certainly within the realm of the science. So all that in summary, probably long-winded. We as a board here need to select which list that this course would fall in. And I would make this suggestion based on my review of the content of the course. Again, it's entitled An Introduction to Land Surveying Principles. That's the name of the course. And in the description information, that's typically what it falls back onto, an introduction of fundamental principles. And I believe it also has a lab associated with it as well.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, before we get too far into
Yes, sir.
this, I believe there's a representative from UT Martin on the phone in case of questions by
Okay.
you all.
Okay.
Is that true? Do we have a representative from UT Martin joining us?
I think I heard earlier that Dr. Melhorn was on. Maybe I missed it. Okay. Hopefully she can chime in here.
Okay.
I'd certainly like to hear her.
I just wanted to make
Thank
you aware of that.
Yes, and that was my miss there. Thank you.
Hey, Michael, it's Morgan. I think they just raised their hand. I think they're trying to talk, but they're not able to speak for some reason.
Okay. All right. Work that out. Probably a technical issue of some sort. I had a whiteboard. Put a whiteboard.
Hello?
Yes.
There we
Who is this from?
I'm sorry, this is Sandy Melhorn.
Okay.
Yes.
Dr.
Okay,
Melhorn,
great,
excellent.
great. We just wanted to make sure that we had a representative in case the board had any questions. Thank you.
Sandy, thank you for attending. We appreciate you being here. We're covering on the agenda. We're covering the request for approval of AGET 352, the Intro to Land Surveying Principles that was submitted. It's my understanding that you're looking for approval of this course to fall under the educational requirements for licensure. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep. Makes sense. And then Sandy, are you familiar with the category of coursework that is required? Often we call list 1, list 2, list 3. Are you familiar with that?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
I figured so. She's very active in a positive way. So I knew she'd be up on it. And that was an easy question. In my review, Sandy, I felt that this course fell under the what's called list 2 category. Is that similar to what you're thinking as well?
Well, I was actually thinking list 1 because it's the exact content of Engineering 350, which is already a list 1 course. It's just offered from a distance with a hybrid method instead of purely in the classroom. But it's the exact same content, the same book, the same everything.
Okay, I do see your okay, number 3, your engineering 350. Okay, so that's obviously, I'm glad you clarified that for us. So this, again, just to reiterate what I think you said there, exact same content, the only difference being that it's a long distance course being made available long distance. Help me out here. I know there's a lab involved, and obviously there's tests involved.
Yes.
How is that handled in a long distance fashion? Just briefly.
Yes, they have to have a licensed surveyor that's willing to help them with the lab objectives, and those are spelled out, and then they can complete those with a surveyor. And then for the exams, they have to have an exam proctor. So.
Okay, I see. All right, I got you there.
And the reason we can't just offer Engineering 350 as a separate section is because of the engineering department's accreditation.
Right.
They can't offer that, like 2 sections, one in class and one not. So we had to create a different course.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, but again, just a little bit of reassurance, exact same course as the previously approved Engineering 350?
Yes.
Okay, same textbook, same everything. Okay, all right. Well, I'm glad you clarified that. My mistake. I'm glad you're on the line there.
The labs, of course, for Engineering 350 are held on our campus. The other labs are held out in the field with a surveyor. So.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think that clarifies a few things, makes our job a little bit easier. Gary, any discussion or thought on that?
Well, I was, on the fence between it being the upper level or introductory, but with her explanation to it, I think I would go for the upper level.
Yep. I think, Kevin?
Yeah, that sounds right. It seemed like there was a little bit of some falling into level 2 and some falling into level 1. Is that correct? But
a little bit, but now that I look more in depth, there is a pretty lengthy prerequisite involved, and it is by definition being a 300 course in the university level. That does define an upper level course.
Right. Okay.
So that was my error.
Yeah.
In my initial review. So Dr. Melhorn certainly cleared that up for us. Okay, Sandy, anything further you want to add to it?
No, I just appreciate your time and consideration.
Well, certainly, and we appreciate you bringing this to our attention and definitely clarifying my error, so thank you. Okay.
You're welcome.
All right. With that being said, do we have a motion for approval?
I'll move to approve it as a level 1.
Level 1. All right, motion made.
I second the motion.
And a second. Any further on that? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, simple enough. I think that covers that, Michael. Am I good with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And one more item on the education report. That was the review, the CE review submitted by Mr. Jeffrey Miller. I was thinking he was going to be in attendance. Am I wrong?
I'm online.
Mr. Miller's online.
He is online. Excellent. Okay, thank you. All right.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Mr. Miller, yes, absolutely. Excellent. I'll tell you what, Mr. Miller, I'm going to turn the microphone over to you and allow you to just kind of introduce yourself, introduce what it is you'd like the board to make a decision on.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to do this online as well. Thank you all for your time. What has happened is I have continued with continuing education, continued with the requirements of the board and such to continue my license and keep it current, active, and everything. It came to my attention, I think recently, a month or two ago, excuse me, I can't remember, but my license was considered expired. So I got online to check out, and what happened was essentially the prior company I used to work for had the email attached to my licensure with your board, and I believe you all changed the process of going to one system to a second system. I thought I had everything updated. I obviously had everything updated, address and phone number, but somehow the email wasn't attached correctly. So I missed the notice to renew my license at the end of 2021. So then, finding all this out, I went online to pay the fee to pay for my license to get it back current, and then I paid the late fee as well. But in doing so, to push it to the new computer system that you all have, the database, I needed to get an email link and bring the prior file or prior computer connection over to the new system. That's when we found out, and I was able to talk to Morgan. She's been very great and helpful for that, for getting everything switched over. So I was able to get everything now switched over to the correct email address and get the proper information. But then in doing so, that triggered for you all that I needed to submit my continuing education credits. At that time, I did submit everything, what I perceived to be sufficient classes and credits. And upon the board's review of it, they did not allow the hours that I feel should be allowed for it. And specifically, in this case, which would be the one consideration, would be the drone testing. I had considerable amount of hours in that testing, and the board only allowed me 3 of those hours, which is insufficient, which makes me not now technically compliant with the requirement of having the 30 or 15 per year for 2 years. So I sent information and probably didn't send enough information, not knowing how much detail you all would need. The board considered only 3 hours of that. I sent to Morgan, and I don't know, hopefully that you all have now a spreadsheet in your packet or you were able to look at. It was a more descriptive course outline as to the program, what they required. I believe there was like 12 to 13 courses in that. I have it broke down, the minutes that I watch their video, I listen to the instructor, I take a quiz at the end of each of these sections, and then I take a practice exam as well. I did not, and have not used the time to take the drone licensure, the actual test, in this time. I did not apply that to that. So this was the study course for me to be able to go and take the exam. So the breakdown roughly is around 660 minutes straight face value, listening to their courses, and then I would take a roughly a 15-minute quiz, and then a practice exam at the very end of all that. So it equates to essentially of 11 hours straight face value of time I spent in it. Actually, I probably spent 3 times that amount, but I'm not trying to claim all those hours. Just the enough that qualifies me for the requirement of the board of having 15 per year, or technically 30. I have some other classes that I've submitted with that too that I've got obviously credit for, and I've done the ethics and standards, so I have that satisfied as well. And I did that within the allotted time as well. So it's my request that you all reconsider the hours I requested from 3 to being more. In this case, like I said, I spent roughly 30 some more hours more, but I just need just enough to carry over for that for the past year. So that's what I'm requesting. It was a very worthwhile program, study guide. I wanted to do this rather than just find questions and answers online and just figure out how just to answer the question. I wanted to be more of what I need to do as a drone pilot and also as a surveyor in that field as well, to represent as well and be the best person I can be for surveyors and for drone pilots.
Okay.
So that would be my request if you all reconsider the hours for that course.
Very good. Thank you, Jeff. I did originally review the PDH hours that he submitted. Morgan sent them to me by email, and I did reply back. And that's what Mr. Miller is referring to, that the board only approved 3 hours for this course. He's speaking of my personal review. Perhaps these other gentlemen may have reviewed it as well. I'm not familiar with that. Jeff, if I could, I kind of want to take a view of your PDH hours from a bigger picture, and then narrow down more specifically into the drone course, if that's all right with you.
Yes, sir.
I think, if I recall correctly, you had submitted 4 different courses that you took for PDH approvals. I'll just start with the first one here. It was entitled Ergonomics, and how to work environment can hurt your bottom line, which I think is pretty funny because if you look at the end of the first line, it just says how it can hurt your bottom, and it stops right there, which I thought was pretty funny with ergonomics. But anyway, I digress. I did not, in my initial review, I did not allow for any PDHs on this. I did not at the time, and I still do not see any direct relevance towards a professional development hour to the profession of surveying. I did go through what looked like PowerPoint slides that you provided, trying to find something in there. There was one slide, PowerPoint presentation slide in there that had some relation to it about pulling a tape or something, but I gotta be honest with you, Jeff, and you and I are friends. We know each other for years now, and I want to work with you here, but I just can't find it here in the ergonomics course that you took. I just can't find direct relevance toward the profession for a PDH credit here. Is there an argument you have that maybe can help me out a little bit here, because I'm just not seeing it?
No, I will be willing to forego that one. These, the three that you're getting ready to mention, the ergonomics, liability, and ownership of intellectual rights, those were offered to me by my insurance carrier.
Okay.
So I'm fine with the ergonomics. I mean, it had to do with office. I'm okay. If you all don't want to approve it, fine. I'm good. I understand.
All right, we'll move on. We'll move on past that if the other members are okay, unless they want to add something. You good?
No, I'm good. That was the one that I kind of scratched in my head.
I looked at it and wondered.
So again, I just want to go through these course by course, and we'll get to the drone pilot here in a minute. The second one, the issue of liability, construction, contract administration, I allowed for the full 3 PDHs in my initial review. Any issues?
I have none. I would agree with you on that one.
Okay. The third one here, ownership of documents and intellectual property. Again, I do see a direct relation and correlation. Again, in my initial review, and I still stand on that way, I allowed for 3 PDHs on that as well.
Yeah,
that
had enough of the kind of contract and law that we need to know.
And then skipping to the last one, and we'll come back to the drone pilot, it looks like you also took the PDHs required for standards of practice and ethics in Tennessee specifically that were provided by TAP. So I think, is there any argument, Jeff, you have with me up to that point? And that was for two PDHs for the ethics and standards. Are we good there?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, sir. We're good. Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think to that point, I think we're at 8, 3, 3, and 2. I think we're at 8. Is that right? Does your math agree with that, Jeff?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right. All right. So let's get down to really what you're requesting, the remotepilot101.com course. I am familiar with that course, although I have not taken that course myself. I have had the 107 certification for about 6 years now. I'm very familiar with the program. I have spoken with others that have taken the program, and all of it has been very positive in terms of the quality of the content. And the point of that is to basically get an applicant for the 107 FAA issued 107 certificate. Is basically, this is all the training up to taking. There is an exam that they have to take, and that's the point of it. So it does have direct value in terms of the training of a prospective UAS pilot, in terms of how to fly, rules and regulations, effects, aerodynamics, reading charts, et cetera, et cetera. It's a pretty broad field of knowledge that you have to have in order to successfully pass that test. And I've heard very positive things about the course. So I'm not questioning the quality of the course, Jeff. Rather, what I'm questioning here, and I wrote this note down that you said here just a little bit earlier, that it sounded like there was, if I believe I understood you correctly, 11 hours of FaceTime in terms of the coursework that's provided from the Remote 101. Is that correct? Did I get that right number, 11 hours?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. So basically we have 11 hours of instruction provided. And I believe that also included time allocated for the quizzes in between each section. Is that right, Jeff? It included those?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I kind of, what I'm looking at is in context of your standard PDH course that you attend in a seminar. You'll sit in a course, you'll receive, generally speaking, 50 minutes of instruction, and then there's like a 10-minute break or something in there. But it totals essentially 3 segments of 50 minutes, and then typically there is some sort of examination or presentation or question answer type thing at the end. And in total, you receive in 3 hours of PDHs for those 3 blocks of 50 minutes. So what I'm looking at here, kind of taking the long way around it, is in similar, trying to put those two together in comparison to a face-to-face seminar of 50-minute segments equals 1 PDH. Here I'm understanding that there was 11 hours of instruction, which could correlate to 11 hours of PDHs. Are you following me, Jeff?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right. And so in my initial review, and Jeff is correct in stating that I allowed for 3-hour PDH because at that time, and again, I've not taken this specific course, so I was not familiar with it, but the additional information that Mr. Miller provided did outline in very good detail what's involved in this course. And it is more extensive than what I had thought. It's very thorough. It does cover very technical standards that could be related towards the profession of surveying. Obviously, drones are now another tool in the toolbox that many surveyors are using. But in order to use that tool, you do have to have the FAA certificate. That's what this course is for, gaining that certificate to allow you to use that tool towards whatever paid application you're going to use. Okay, so with that being said, I do think I was in error of assessing only 3-hour PDHs, now that I have a more detailed outline of what's involved in terms of the amount of instruction provided. And again, going off Mr. Miller's review of the quantity of face time value of the course, I could be persuaded to change my initial 3-hour review to a total of 11 hours. Because that's, again, what Mr. Miller has said, that was the actual face time involved, including the quizzes involved. Again, I'm trying to correlate that to if you were to attend one in person, what is the return in terms of PDHs and time, face time that you get there. I'm trying to put apples to apples is what I'm doing. So that's my request or suggestion here, that we allow Mr. Miller 11 hours of PDHs. But I want to expand on that just a little bit, even though I'm getting long-winded. I'm sorry. Mr. Miller, I know you have been, and I assume you still are, active in TAPS, if not just a member. Very knowledgeable of the profession. I'm not questioning your credentials at all. They're A+ positive as best I know. And of course, like I said, I know you personally. You're a stand-up guy, no question. The one thing I have in mind here is that the courses that you're requesting PDH approvals for, I don't know that any of those are pre-approved. And of course, we all know that the PDHs that we take as surveyors are supposed to be pre-approved. However, the board does allow for not pre-approved courses pending review, and that's what we're doing here. So I just kind of wanted to make that clear to the other people, to all the surveyors that are required to have PDHs, that this is an individual basis on review for courses that were not pre-approved. Personally speaking, I don't like that. They're supposed to be pre-approved. We'd like the opportunity to be able to do a thorough investigation, to allow it to go through our PDH approval process, which we went through earlier today. So I would like to, Jeff, I know you know this, that we're supposed to have pre-approved PDHs. So in the future, obviously, to avoid this kind of conflict, I'd suggest that you do that. Okay, so I want to throw this over to the other board members here. I've been long-winded about what I've changed my recommendation to. What I'm suggesting is the 11 hours for the pilot course and a total of 8 hours for the other courses, which would total 19. But Jeff, we both can do the math there. That still falls short of the required 30. But before I ask you to respond to that, I do want to throw it over to the other members here and get their thoughts on it. Gary?
Okay. Yeah, Jeff and Jay, I was going back to the emails. I don't actually see that statement of 11 hours of FaceTime. Jeff, do you agree with that?
He stated it verbally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because
I'm sorry, Gary, just sorry to interrupt. I believe the spreadsheet I sent you had that breakdown of the total hours.
So it's in the spreadsheet.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I didn't total up that way. But anyway, 11 hours is what you're saying on that. I guess to take the shorter route, I essentially agree with Jay that the FaceTime is important with it. I do think it's a course that should be approved. Although based on the 50 minutes of FaceTime that we normally go to and doing the math, I'm more inclined to go to 14 hours for the course.
Okay, Kevin?
Mr. Miller, I know that you mentioned, so I'm trying to understand a little bit of this. I think you had mentioned that 600 plus minutes, and I guess Jay was going back to the point that some of those just really aren't relevant, and they don't go towards the hours that you need. But as far as the 11 versus, I do agree, 11 or 14.
Jeff, any thoughts here real quick before we go forward?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I heard just bits and pieces. I'm sorry. I don't know if my connection was breaking up, but the Kevin, your last comments, I believe, and Jay, you can tell me, correct me. I believe I heard bits and pieces. I believe he agreed with possibly Gary on the hours, the 14.
Mr. Miller, I apologize for that. I think I had hit the mute button. I was saying that yeah, I'll defer. We'll agree on the 11 versus the 14. But the part I do agree that is pretty clear cut is the 3 and 2. So I had also stated that I know you mentioned I think 600 minutes plus, but Jay had mentioned that some of those just aren't relevant, and I would agree with that based on what I've seen. So I think we're going to be at 332 and 11 or 332 and 14, and we just got to iron that out.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. Yes, I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate your offer, and I think that's very considerate of you. And to one thing that was happening at this time, these were being obtained during the COVID time. I don't really want to use that as a crutch, but it was during the years of the COVID where we were trying to socially distance and things, and I was trying to figure out how to get proper education. And this, the drone stuff seemed to fall in place. And that's one thing why I took that. And just as you all figure out your tabulations, your final total, I want you all to know that I've been proactive since I found there could be a concern or an issue with this. I have actually gone out and got more credits for technically this year. I'm willing to satisfy the board for the prior years, thus making me need to but get the required amount for the next 2 year section for the licensure. So I've not sat back and going, well, I'm going to make them prove it to me and make them give me all the credits. I've been proactive to try to rectify the situation in the meantime and not sit on my hands.
Jeff, again, I said earlier, I know you fairly well, and that does not surprise me. That sounds right in line with your character of being responsible. So good on you.
And just to let you know, those out of those that I have, I've taken Mr. Lucas. I took several of his class programs, his outlines that have been, and I made sure they were approved by the board prior to taking it. So that will hopefully expedite the situation for us.
Okay. All right. With that being said, it sounds like really what this board needs to decide is just how many credit hours we're going to allow Mr. Miller for the drone course. I had suggested 11 hours based on the math that Mr. Miller had provided, both in documentation and verbally over the phone here, of approximately 11 hours of FaceTime, trying to equate that to if you were to attend a seminar in person, trying to make apples and apples out of that. Gary, you had mentioned 14.
Yeah, well, it's more than 600 hours is what he said. I just did the math, and 15 of that
600 minutes, sorry.
Closer to 13, and so I'm just going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that I think the course is probably worth 14 hours.
14? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I think it's a good course, and it's a good thing for surveyors to hit, even if they're not going to the drone program, just to be aware that you can't just buy a drone and go out and start doing stuff.
But,
so that's all good. So it's really, Jeff, just comes down to the being fair with everybody else, the amount of FaceTime you did. So.
Yes, sir.
And that's where I'm landing. I wish I could give you on the ergonomics, but that was just too far off to the side.
Yes, sir. I understand. Sure. Thank you.
And I do want to stress that it does have this Drone Pilot 101 course does have direct correlation to surveying. So I do feel that the PDHs that we award here are valid. With that being said, Gary, I'm willing to negotiate with you. in the interest of keeping the PDHs in even blocks of 3, as they typically are, I'm willing to go to 12 hours on it, to expand a little bit on, perhaps time expanded beyond the face time there, just to keep it of interest. 14, I just don't see it.
Okay. I'll compromise with you.
Okay, so I'm going to work with 12 hours there on the drone pilot course, a total of 8 hours on the other courses. So we're looking at 12 and 8, 20. It looks like we're going to, for what you've submitted here, we're looking at 20 hours, which I believe a little bit of math there would still require 10 hours, which it sounds like you're actively pursuing already.
Yes, sir. That, if y'all agree, I would be happy with that. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I would request a motion from the member of the board here for a total of 20 hours awarded to Mr. Miller for those submitted.
Make a motion that we award Mr. Miller for 20 hours credit.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Anything further? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, very good. Mr. Miller, 20 hours.
And if I could, real quick, what would be the process? I just need to submit to the board the remaining hours to get me changed to active for the current licensure.
Yeah, I'd suggest you get in contact with Morgan, and she'll give you more specifics as to exactly what you need. I just don't have the current status of your situation right here in front of me.
I understand. Okay, I'll contact her. Well, thank you very much. Thank you all for your time and consideration.
All right, Jeff, great to hear from you, buddy. Thanks.
Bye.
Okay, I think we've covered the educational report, unless I'm missing something. If we have, can I suggest a 10-minute break?
It's your meeting.
10 minutes it is.
Okay. 10 minutes. We will reconvene at 10:23.
Work.
Thank you. We can pause the recording. Okay, it is 10:23. The 10-minute break is over. We will reconvene this meeting starting with the legal report. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir. Legal report. I guess we'll turn that over to Miss Erica. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you. All right, the first one is 2022000891. Complainant filed this complaint because they allege respondent will not come out and find their property line. Complainant and their neighbor have a property line dispute. Respondent had conducted the last survey of complainant's property prior to the purchase of the land. Complainant alleges they have been trying to get respondent to come out and show them where the boundary markers are, but respondent has stated they are very busy and has agreed to do it when they can, but that hasn't happened yet. So that led to this complaint. Respondent feels that once they finish the survey for the client that owned that property at the time, they feel they fulfilled their obligations in relation to that job as a licensed land surveyor. Respondent states that complainant and complainant's husband have both reached out to them since buying the property, and respondent has repeatedly told them that they would be happy to come back out, but is currently backed up on jobs. Respondent never gave them a time frame. Complainant then began threatening to turn respondent into this board and file this complaint, and then also showed up at respondent's home asking what respondent's problem was. I recently reached out to the respondent and asked if they had gone out and done this yet, and he stated that he hasn't heard from complainant since the complainant's been since the complaint was filed, and that was back in January. So, based on all the evidence and all the information, I recommend dismissing this because there's no violation of rules or statutes.
Yep, exactly. The respondent, i.e. the surveyor, really has no obligation to this person whatsoever, unless they want to, completely independent of prior actions, go into a contract to come out and survey the line. Ones like this kind of bother me. It's a little bit of I don't know if abuse is a bit of strong word, of the complaint process, quite honestly. That's not the intention of what the complaint process is for. I'm never going to tell somebody not to file a complaint. I mean, if they want to, they can, but it's just not in my view what the purpose is. So anyway, with that, I agree with the recommendation of staff for dismissal, and make a. Are we going to do one motion for each one? Is that correct? I think we should.
I think that's
how we usually do it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And with that, I'll make the motion for dismissal as recommended by staff.
Second.
All right. So motion and a second for dismissal. Is there any follow-up discussion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, Miss Erica, item number 2.
Number 2, the complaint is 2022000731. Complainant states respondent completed a survey for them around December 15th of last year. Complainant then paid the remaining balance of $500 on December 17th and asked for a drawing of the survey for their title company. This complaint was filed because respondent had not provided that by January 10th. So complainant simply filed this complaint asking for our assistance in getting in touch with respondent and getting that completed. Respondent immediately responded to this complaint, and they had actually told the complainant that they would send it to the local title company once it was completed. Respondent did not give them a time frame or guarantee when it would be done. But since the complaint was filed, respondent spoke with complainant, offered a full refund, or asked that complainant give them until the following Monday, which was 4 days later, to complete the request. Complainant chose that option, and the drawing has been received by the title company. Complainant satisfied, so this issue is resolved. So my recommendation is to dismiss.
Absolutely, yeah. Again, it's an issue of communication and perhaps, the business process there of maybe not turning around a product quick enough. Again, kind of towards not really the purpose of complaints, but I understand where they're coming from. But I agree with staff in their recommendation for dismissal and make a motion thereof. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, motion and second further. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Very good. Ms. Hira, you're on a roll. Number 3.
Number 3 is 2021079991. Complainant states respondent came out to do a property line survey for their next door neighbor. Complainant explains that respondent used a device to search for property markers and pins, alleging that respondent accused her husband of, quote, illegally planting the marker. Complainant proceeded to bring out their plat showing the property markers and is upset, alleging the respondent told them they have the wrong document. Respondent told the complainant the subdivision survey was the correct document to use. Complainant alleges they know respondent frequents a neighborhood restaurant bar daily and is there drinking on different days of the week. That they felt like that was necessary to add to this complaint. I'm not sure why, but there's no evidence of that having to do with anything. Complainant also alleges respondent dug 3 holes in their front yard, stating that he was within his right because he was digging on an easement. Complainant states the holes were left open and the sod was not replaced, and complainant just complains about respondent being allegedly unprofessional and belligerent. Respondent was hired by their client, which is the neighbor, to restake the lot and provided the recorded plat information. Respondent was warned about complainant prior to doing this job. The neighbor alleges they like to argue and disregard what they have to say. Respondent basically confirmed that there was an argument in person while he was trying to do the job. Eventually, respondent attempted to explain the different documents further, but found it difficult and pointless to continue speaking with them about why he's doing the job and who has the correct document. Respondent did confirm they cored out the grass to replace it when they were done with the job. They had to come back multiple times. Complainant alleges that they would, actually stated they would have respondent arrested for trespass if he came onto the property. And respondent's not going to respond to the allegation that he frequents a bar. So based on all of the facts provided, there's no evidence of any violations here.
Yeah,
so my recommendation is dismissal.
And I agree with that recommendation from staff there. It's
That's
a lot going on there.
Move to dismiss.
Yeah. All right, so we do have a motion for dismissal. Is there a second?
A second.
All right. Any further discussion on it? All right, hearing none. All those in favor for dismissal say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Item number 4, please.
Number 4, the complaint number is 2022002731. On December 21st of last year, respondent self-reported to the board that he did not pay attention and allowed his license to expire. because of a very severe personal problem, and respondent expanded on that, explaining his wife has been battling cancer and had to have her arm amputated, and endured many extended stays in the hospital where respondent was by her side. Respondent admits that he went through the worst trial of his life during this period of non-renewal, and it just seriously disrupted their lives and caused them to be oblivious to many things going on around him. Respondent states he has been surveying his entire life. It is very important to him. He explains that he never received a renewal application despite looking through emails and mail. However, he also acknowledges this is his fault and responsibility. Respondent had kept up with all the continuing education during the time. So in essence, the only thing that wasn't taken care of was the $200 fee. And respondent notes that the board was very careful in their assessment of granting him a reinstatement after all of this. So the board obviously determined he was capable of holding a license and was found to have met the reciprocity requirement. So respondent is active. He's 76 years old, semi-retired, but this was not something we asked respondent to provide. Respondent, when he self-reported, immediately provided the information that he had done surveying in the time of his license being expired, provided a list of 26 surveys done during that time. Respondent did not accept any new projects after November 18th of 2021 when he self-reported. Prior to getting the license reinstated, he was licensed with the board for over 30 years and never had an issue with renewal. So based on, I feel like there's quite a few mitigating factors here. I think for this case in particular, the best route would be to issue a letter of warning, but I'm very open to hearing if the board feels that's not appropriate.
Certainly. I always appreciate the forwardness that the respondent can have here. That they self-reported says a lot. That he's self-reported that he's done X number of surveys since he discovered that the license was expired at that time. All that is self-initiated. That says a lot to me. In addition to having no disciplinary history, that says a lot to me. I mean, having surveyed for quite some time, over 30 years. That says a lot to me as well. The one question I do have for legal, perhaps you can help me. Assuming whatever action we take here, does it have any effect on the 26 surveys that they've done that he performed during that time that he was not, technically that his license was expired? Does the decision that we make here on the license itself have any effect on those surveys itself? Let's just say something comes up with one of those specific surveys or several. Something comes up there. Is there anything that this decision we make today affects those, or is it completely independent of those surveys?
I think it is independent because the decision we make today is not going to change the fact that his license was expired at that time.
Okay,
so somebody would have to complain, and it would be a case-by-case basis and based on how because they could take it to civil court,
right.
So.
Okay, I just want to make that clear that we're dealing with the expiration of the license here, not those individual surveys that were performed during the expired license. Right. Completely independent. Okay, yes. I just want to make sure.
And if that happens, we'd have to deal with those complaints separately, and we could take different action if necessary based on that.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure that was on the record. Okay, any thoughts from the other members of the board here? Gary?
No, I don't have anything else on that.
Okay, and Kevin?
Yeah, I do agree with the fact that he was very proactive and by his own admission, not waiting to be caught, but rather saying, hey, I made a mistake, and I think that goes a long way with me.
Okay. I think all that goes without saying that whatever we decide here, that it still is independent of any fees or applications or whatever the process is to get his license back, still in effect completely. But that it looks like here we're going to make a motion for approval from staff for the recommendation of a letter of warning. So with that, I make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Very good. Excellent job. Thank you.
And let me just note, so there's one more on our legal report. It's number 5. It's 2021-071-051. And because Mr. Kaufman needs to recuse himself. We do not have a quorum, so we will have to move this to the next legal report, and that will be presented in August.
August? Okay. That is correct. I do have to recuse myself, as I did at the prior meeting when this came up here. I do have some prior knowledge of it before it became a complaint, and I think in fairness to all parties, I should recuse myself on that. So with that. All right, so with that, we'll move that item. We'll table it until the August meeting, at which time we hope to have a full quorum, and we'll be able to take some action on that. And I believe I've run out of paper, so does that conclude the legal report?
It does.
It does. Outstanding job, Miss Erica. Thank you.
Thank you.
As always. All right, Mr. Director, I'll throw it back at you.
Thank you, sir. In the absence of Mr. Dillahay, I don't know that there's much I can tell you that would be industry-wise meaningful to you about the NCES meeting in Oklahoma City. I can give you a brief synopsis of what occurred. It was, I believe, a very well-attended regional meeting. A lot of the subsequent voting at the annual meeting was discussed, and things were decided in there and how the region would kind of collectively go in that sense. I'm hoping Mr. Dillahay would give you a little bit more of a detailed account. But if you've been to one, I'd say that you may have a good idea of the kind of business that was taking place there. It was my first one, so it was my first in-person meeting with the NCES. So the whole experience was new to me. I just took in as much as I could.
Be overwhelming, quite honestly, and I know that was just a regional meeting. Certainly the annual meeting is quite larger, but similar in fashion.
Well, and it was interesting because they were in the breakouts. Aside from the kind of the morning session where they talked about upcoming votes at the annual meeting, there were breakout sessions that were industry specific, including member board executives.
Yes.
So we were all separated into different rooms, and I don't have any idea what was discussed in the engineer's room or the land surveyor's room. So,
I understand.
I wouldn't be able to report on anything further than what I've said.
But they fed you well, right?
Yeah, we ate.
Yeah, we ate.
We ate. We ate, and we were, it was a good location. We were close enough to what they call their entertainment district. We were right across the street from the basketball arena.
Good.
So yeah. In keeping with the NCES meeting, I believe we've already discussed the annual meeting that is upcoming in August.
Yes.
But because I think we needed to go ahead and get that verification done, that the 3 surveyors on the board would be the funded delegates.
Correct.
And so just a reminder, that's coming up in August. I think it is before the next scheduled meeting in August.
Oh, it's very close. I want to say it's like within the week. I'm not positive.
I think it's the week before.
Week before? It could
I think
be.
so.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not doubting you.
I'd have to double check those dates, but I believe it's the week before. So I assume there would be plenty to talk about regarding that meeting coming back. But, so with that, I'll move on to the financial report. You have received in your meeting material packet of 157 pages. This is 156.
I could just correct you on one point. The annual meeting is the week after.
Oh, it's the week after.
It is the week after.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's even better.
It is, yes. Oh, sorry to interrupt you there.
No problem. Not a problem. You all have received the usual NPS report, which is through March of 22. This is the most current one that I have. It shows this program operating currently in a net surplus of $186,000, some change. However, I'd like to point out that this was a renewal cycle year. So
this is as good as it's going to get, is what you're saying.
Potentially, unless there are just a rash of additional
funds come pouring in.
Funds, donations, I'm kidding, not donations, but, licensees, that sort of stuff. We're probably sitting where we're sitting for the time being until the next cycle comes around.
That sounds right. Thank you.
Okay. Speaking of cycles, you had asked for some license count information.
Just a brief overview of where we stand in terms of license counts. I get that question asked quite often, and it is kind of good to hear the statistics of where we're sitting in terms of numbers of current licensees, especially based on we just had a renewal. So some of those, I'm sure there's X number. Maybe Caleb might be able to help us out here. I'm not trying to put you on the spot of either didn't renew or haven't renewed or something to that effect.
Have those. But before I do that, I would like to add one more thing, if I could, to the NCES meeting, and that was that Mr. Lingerfelt was honored. He, as you all know, he is a emeritus status, and I believe a founding member of this body. I think he was on one of the original appointees to the Land Surveyors Board of Examiners.
Not sure about that, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, I wasn't.
I'm not sure he's that old.
Don't think he's
Yeah,
he's not that old now. Come on now.
Pardon me,
He may
Tim.
be that well respected, but I don't think he's that old.
Pardon me. Anyway, he had received the award for service to NCES,
Yes.
and he was, nice to see him get that recognition for everything that he's done. His wife was able to attend with him, so it was good to connect with him. I hadn't seen him for some time, so just wanted to say that Mr. Lingerfelt had been awarded, and he represented well.
I no doubts, and it is more than well deserved on his part for his efforts towards improving NCEES, especially in the southern zone that we as Tennessee are a member of. The thing that I really want to recognize here, and I'm going to keep it brief, was that really this board was not active in NCEES prior to his service on this board. He was aware of that, and he took the ball and ran with it. And boy, I tell you, that man hit a touchdown with it every time. His true passion, not only to the surveyors of Tennessee, but to expand beyond that onto a national and somewhat international level in regards to the NCES and the testing of surveyors was just amazing. And now that his time with NCES in terms of as an officer has passed, he still is every bit as active and every bit as passionate. And is more than well deserving of that award. So although I wasn't able to attend in person, I regret that. I understand that it was well received, and I'm glad to hear that his wife was able to attend and that he was well represented. I don't doubt that. So,
Okay. So now getting back to the license count. So we currently have 1,061 active licensees. 11 of those are new in 2022.
all right. Yep.
So, and we can break it down even further. From that number, 690 are local to Tennessee.
So their home mailing address is Tennessee. Is that what you're saying? Right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
371 are in other states, and of those, 277 are immediately in border states. I should say adjacent border states. Yes.
Right. Makes sense.
So we still have, according to some audit work, we still have about 66 renewals that are still open, pending.
Do you have any feel for how the audit is going? I know that's under process. I've received a few phone calls saying, "Hey, I just got this letter. What's going on?" type thing. Not trying to put you on the spot or anything. I didn't know if there was any kind of update on that. How's it going?
Yeah, it's still in process.
Sure.
Yep. We don't really have any real numbers to offer you at the moment. But Caleb, do you have anything you?
That's why I'm getting phone calls.
Sent the audit letters on May 3rd, and those were via email. That we sent them via email. I had the information, but I don't have it readily available right now. I apologize.
Idea on the number of registrants that were audited?
98 land surveyors audited. 44 have submitted their CE.
Good.
I apologize for the delay.
Okay, that's good to hear. Anything further on licensure count? I think that covers probably what I had asked for.
I believe that's all I've got here.
Great.
Katie, you have a bill for that 1061? Is that about where you would think, or
It's
relative to, let's say, last
I've always had in my mind the 1100 number.
Okay.
It's just kind of stuck in my mind. That's probably based on a number a couple years old, and we all know that the numbers in terms of the profession have declined over the years. Looks like a 39 decline there from my mental number of 1100.
Right.
I want to say that at one point in time, I remember reporting 1077. And so with there still being a number that are outstanding and 11 new ones this year, it stands to reason there may be a slight growth in number.
Yep.
We'll just have to wait and see about those 66.
Okay. No, I know just from the applications that come through for us for review. There was plenty of them here the first couple months, probably first 3 months, 4 months of the year. Very active in terms of review of applications. Although I will say, in probably the last 30 days, it's kind of slowed down. I couldn't tell you why. It's kind of slowed down a little bit, but I was very encouraged by those numbers in terms of applications coming through. Now, whether they proceeded through and took examination and pass fail, I couldn't tell you, but it was very encouraging. So that's good to hear.
Sure.
Okay. We will move on to old business. If you're complete with
I am.
With the
Yes,
director's
sir.
report. Not trying to kick you out
we
or
are.
anything, but outstanding job. Thank you. Okay, I think what we're looking for here under old business, the rule and technical standards change, to see if there's any update on that. Can anybody provide some information there?
I do. I have an update. The governor's office has approved the rule changes. We're in the process of notifying the Secretary of State's office, and we will be pushing for a rule-making hearing at the August meeting.
Okay, so here's my question. I receive, I'm on the email blast thing, so I get several anytime there's a rulemaking hearing in certain professions. I do get emails, surveying being one of them. But I did receive one the other day that does indirectly affect surveyors. I don't mean to cut you off there as far as the update on the surveyors rulemaking. Were you complete there?
Yeah, that's all.
You're
right.
good. Okay, all right,
Yeah.
good. Thank you. I didn't want to cut you off. And I'm kind of expanding beyond that a little bit. But there was a rulemaking hearing issuance the other day. Came out in I think it was early May, I believe. And this had to do with, just to kind of paraphrase, regulatory boards acknowledging military training equivalent credit hours. And then it states, it doesn't say specifically that it states Surveyors Board, but it does say that any of those that fall under TCA 43-1304 sub A, which I did look up, it does that it specifically does apply to the Surveyors Board based on that TCA. So this rule change would indirectly affect the Surveyors Board. Again, just to paraphrase, and please correct me if you have better knowledge than what I paraphrase as, essentially acknowledging that should an applicant come through that has prior military experience and has taken educational courses offered by the military or one of their entities, that the regulatory board, in this case the surveyors, recognize that and apply it as it would be towards either application or PDHs. That's kind of my, from 1,000 feet looking down at it, view. Did I misspeak in any way?
Yeah.
Okay. And again, that's just a rulemaking hearing. So I just kind of wanted to give notice to that. So thank you. And I appreciate the update there. That's good to see that we are slowly making progress, but it is working its way through. So
The wheel is turning.
what, just to kind of follow up on it, what did you say the next step was? And do you have an anticipation on how quickly that could happen?
We're in the process right now of filing the notice
Right.
with the Secretary of State's office. And so once that notice goes out, then the rulemaking hearing will be set for the August meeting.
Okay. And I guess that we would anticipate getting the email blast with one of these, the rulemaking hearing, same process, right?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. That helps. Okay. Second item here under old business was the Tennessee state specific exam. I think that probably the genesis of that was from a prior meeting we made mention of. There is discussion of possibly removing that specific requirement for licensure. I don't have anything to expand on it. I'll open it up to these guys if they do. I think the idea there was with the Oklahoma City meeting approaching, we were going to make discussion of it amongst the surveyors to see, are there other states, looking at adopting this? And again, the genesis of it came from Kentucky having done that themselves. one or two other states also does it as well. We're kind of just, my approach was to kind of sit back and see if, is this snowball going to build as it rolls down the hill, or is it just kind of sitting there? I have not heard anything from anybody to expand on it, quite honestly. I was hoping to take advantage of Oklahoma City to see just, hey, what are you guys doing? Are you thinking about it? Are you talking about it? And maybe Jackie could expand on it since he was there representing the surveyors in those breakout rooms. Did any of y'all have something to expand on that, or?
No, I've not had, nobody, we asked at the TAPS meeting if anyone had anything to say about it, to contact us, but I've not had any real comments one way or the other on it.
Okay.
I think we do would be interested for Jackie at the next meeting to expand upon it.
Okay, Kevin.
Okay,
Comments. I just recall that in the previous meeting we talked about it would be nice to pick the bones of a state that operates this way and find out if they've had good experience or not.
Yeah, and I had discussion with both the director and the board members in Kentucky about how it was going. This was back when they originally came up, and it was very positive. Just kind of summarize in general, it was very positive. The only thing that really concerns me is if and when we go forward with this in Tennessee, the administrative process to kind of eliminate that from both statute and from the rules. So it's going to be a logistical nightmare. So that part I'm not really looking forward to, but we certainly want to get a feel from other surveyors in the state as to would they be open to adopting this idea. So certainly open for further discussion.
Well, fortunately, they're experts. Take that project on if needed.
No doubt.
Yeah.
All right. I think that covers both items under old business. Unless I'm missing something, we can move on to new business.
I think that's good.
Okay. First item under new business. It looks like the board administrative office did receive a letter from, I believe it was Madison County. That's what I typically define as Jackson, Tennessee, over on my side of the state, requesting GPS coordinates be provided on plats.
Yes, sir. And you all received a copy of that email
Yes.
request. It should be the last page of your meeting material.
Yes, that is correct. And in general, it was, I believe it was authored from their GIS department, I believe is where it came from. And I kind of understand where they're coming from. They like to, usually the assessor's office will have a map that shows the general property lines of all the properties in the county. And what they like to do is as a surveyor files or records a plat, if it's on state plane coordinates, they can literally kind of cut and paste, and it falls right in place. And so it automatically updates their overall map with the least amount of effort. What happens, and we're they're not required to do that based on our rules, but what happens is when somebody submits a plat that is not on state plane coordinates, the assessor's office or whoever's handling that mapping has to go through a little more effort in terms of getting that new boundary of a new parcel to fall in the correct place. So it's really a matter of, look, things are getting a little more high tech. This can be done. Sure would be easier and everything would fall in place if we just had this requirement. And so I think I have a pretty good understanding of where they're coming from and why they're requesting this. There is no obligation or rule or statute or anything on the surveyor's part to do that. There are many local entities, and there are several in my parts, that do require this on a local basis. And generally it comes from planning departments, maybe engineering departments that say something to the effect of, if you're going to file a subdivision with us, then one or two corners have to be labeled with a state plane coordinate. And it's a local requirement for their approval. Do you want to push the issue that, no, it's not really required? That's not what we're here to discuss. And that's the purpose of it, is for their mapping purposes. So this request really is coming from a county effort as opposed to a local municipal effort. The counter argument to it, in my understanding, I certainly want to hear from these gentlemen, is that the easiest way to do this now would be by using GPS methods in every survey. That would translate the latitude longitudes into a state plane coordinate. It would be on a state plane bearing basis, and literally it would fall right into place of the master map. But that requires that every surveyor that's going out doing surveys on every survey have GPS equipment, and that's where I find fault in this. I never want to, essentially you would essentially be mandating that equipment, and I never want to mandate or tell a surveyor how to do a survey. That I don't think that's not our job.
We've got precedent of that, though, Jay. We've actually did make it illegal to use the mountain compass or mountain travelers to do surveying with. So, I mean, it's dictating a level of equipment is something we have already done.
Well, those are in the standards of I believe you're referring to the closure.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from there.
Well, so that you can't do it. I mean, so we do have a requirement for a certain level of equipment. I don't know if we're ready to require everybody to have GPS. In fact, I would suggest to them, since there's really no such thing as GPS coordinates, I mean, GPS is an equipment, they need to change their terminology, and what they really want is they want the surveys to be related to Tennessee State Grid.
Yes, that's what
they need to say it correctly and to go with that. And I mean, you're quite correct. There's a lot of counties already that to submit a plat require you to be tied to the Tennessee State Grid. But most of them have a requirement that it's if you're within a certain amount of distance to a monumentation. So you could do it without GPS equipment. In fact, as long as I've been licensed in North Carolina, which was back in the 80s, they had a requirement that if you put a survey in, and of course they can record any map in North Carolina, but one of the requirements again was if you were within 2,000 feet of monumentation, then you had to be on state plane. I mean, I think that eventually we will put that in our requirements, but as far as the answer to Madison County, they can make that requirement locally themselves. I would suggest to them to quit saying GPS coordinates and just say state plane coordinates, and not dictate to the surveyor how he gets to state plane coordinates.
Kev, you want to expand on it at all?
Only in the sense that I have a question. Is it possible that in the future GPS coordinates could migrate and be less accurate than an existing?
Oh, I mean, they can be less accurate now. I mean, one of the problems I have with GPS just as I mentioned earlier, is it's gotten to be such a black box that any fool can use it, and frequently they do. And there's coordinates will come in that, they didn't notice that they weren't locked onto a courier station, or they lost radio lock with their base station, and they've gone to mapping grade coordinates instead of survey grade. I mean, there's a whole, but you have that in all the survey.
Understood.
I mean, anybody can do it wrong,
right,
and do it right. I guess my only thing, continuing the discussion, they can make the requirement without requiring people to buy GPS equipment, and even if they required it, would just be a matter that somebody would end up subcontracting somebody to run out and do them a couple of base points with it. It's not an unreasonable request. But I don't know it requires us to do it.
Yeah, and I'm agreeing with everything you said there, Gary. I do think that it really is more of a local requirement that they should probably bring up on a local basis. I don't think we're ready. I agree that day may come statewide. It may come. As that tool is in more surveyors' chests than not. As it used to not be that way, obviously.
Yeah.
But I just don't know that we're ready statewide basis to go that route. There's a lot of technical issues in there.
Actually, run into more surveyors who have GPS equipment and don't have a total station.
Yeah, those are good.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the effort. I understand where they're coming from, but I don't know that that's an action that this board wants to take on. I would suggest they do it locally.
Would it be appropriate for us to respond in writing, making that suggestion and even suggesting some wording?
You want to take that on?
I can't.
Careful while you present that.
That's a paragraph. That's easy.
I understand.
Right.
Okay, just keep in mind it's got to work its way through admin. So if you do choose to do that.
Yeah, you can, if you'd like to pen something, send it through to myself and Caleb. We'll make sure we get all the appropriate approvals, just to cover ourselves.
It works.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's a legitimate request, and I see that it's a desirable thing too. I would encourage them to take it on as a local regulation, and I think it would be appropriate for the board to suggest better wording because that's the main problem I have with is just what they're wording there is GPS coordinates, which there is no such thing. GPS is a satellite.
All right. Final item here is PDH hours for attendance today. We're looking at basically 11 o'clock right now, if I got that right.
2 hours on the button with a 10-minute
Wow.
break.
2 hours on the button. How about 2 PDHs?
So moved.
All right. Motion. Second. Got a second? Got a second there?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. And before we close the meeting, though, I certainly don't want to get out of here without certainly thanking Michael for your efforts over the last 2 years. Is that about right? Outstanding job by you and your staff and management of your staff. I can't say enough for the communication efforts, mainly between Morgan and Caleb and myself and the other members of the board. But that doesn't happen without good leadership on your part and all of your staff. So I certainly want to
I'll
thank you
second
for
that with being the newest member on board here, is that the level of communication you've done to help me on board and supply me with what I thought I needed to figure out what I needed to be doing here has been outstanding.
Great.
Very, very well done.
Especially going through, with all the technical issues and administrative issues of the whole COVID stuff and all that, it still flowed, it worked without interruption. So, and that's a testament to you and all your staff and your leadership there. So certainly want to acknowledge that. And I'm sorry we didn't get to hit a few more baseball games along the way. I certainly enjoyed that time together.
Well, I'm not going far. I'm at this point, I'm going one floor away, but I believe in the very near future, we're going to all be on the same floor anyway. So it'll kind of be either across the hall or around the corner at that point. But thank you very much for those kind words. I appreciate it. And, I know the staff has worked very hard over the past 2 years as well, most especially during those times of trying to figure out how to do this remotely and making sure that we didn't lose anything. And they had started that process by the time I came on board. And I was grateful to have Caleb and Morgan and all those. There have been actually a couple of others who have touched land surveying during that course, those 2 years. So I'm grateful to all of them because, without their success, the program doesn't succeed. So I want to say thank you to the staff for that. I want to say thank you to you all as well for your guidance and your friendship. It means a lot to me. And I hope to see you all in the future. You all have my contact info, so if I can ever be helpful to you, please don't hesitate to reach out. And please, I don't know if I'll see Jackie, but next time you see Jackie, you can let him know I enjoyed spending time with him in Oklahoma City. We had a good couple of dinners together and a good chance to get to know each other. So thank you all. And I believe you could entertain another motion.
Not quite yet. I do want to acknowledge, of course, Glenn will be coming on board at our next meeting, I believe.
Yes, that's
be
correct.
sitting in that chair.
He may sit over there. I don't know.
We'll move him.
Yeah.
We'll tell him how it works.
Okay.
But I certainly want to acknowledge him. I've certainly worked with Glenn before when he was involved with this board prior. Certainly look forward to working with him again. He's a great, outstanding guy. I'm glad to see that he's getting that opportunity to be a director. So well deserved there. And lastly, but certainly not least, I certainly want to acknowledge Maria Bush, who was not able with us today. I think she's moved on to other pastures, I guess.
Yes, that's right? Correct. And to dovetail on what you said, Glenn comes with the utmost confidence of not only me, but the higher ups in this department. He's well respected and well regarded, and you all are being left in great hands. And you are correct, Maria. Maria did take another job. She's now with the comptroller's office. Okay. And as you may have figured out from this meeting, Stuart Huffman is now the program attorney. Erica Smith remains the disciplinary attorney.
Okay.
And so, for legal issues moving forward, Stuart and Erica will be the people that we will get in touch with. Hopefully you would, if you have any legal issues, just like in the past, either discuss them with Glenn or Caleb, because they may not need to be taken higher up.
I understand.
But yeah, Maria did serve fairly well, and she was,
Outstanding.
I was sad to see her go,
I can imagine.
but
yeah.
Stuart has worked with this program before,
Oh, yeah.
and he's no stranger to this. And
Absolutely.
so again, just like with Glenn, you're in great hands
No
on
doubt.
the legal side as well.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, again, just even just this meeting, but all meetings, as always, just kudos to admin for putting it all together. And we know who runs the show around here. They do an outstanding job. I can't say enough positive things about it. And again, congratulations on your new position, and we certainly look forward to the next meeting coming up and those after. Anything further, or can we take a motion for dismissal?
You can take a motion.
All right, motion.
And second.
All right. Any opposed? Then all in favor.
Aye.
We're dismissed.
Thank you.